This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game features my 3Ms with Mackenzie, Maximus, and Mika returning. Mackenzie is playing his newly built St. Traft and Rem, which focuses on untapping and tapping creatures and convoking, keeping Boros Charm, Reliquary Tower, Boros Signet, Plains, Soul Ring, Idyllic Beachfront, and Enlightened Tutor. I am playing my +1/+1 counters matters, Halana and Alena deck, keeping an Opal Palace, Tavern Brawler, 3 Forests, the Red Terror, and Soul Ring as well. Max is playing his Sivitri Demir control deck, keeping 2 Islands, Command Tower, Shrine of the Forsaken Gods, Trading Post, March of Progress, and Spellskite. Last but not least, Mika is playing his upgraded Precon deck, featuring Sidar Jabari of Zalfir, and it's a night-themed deck. He keeps Herald of Hoofbeats, Plains, Blacklands Paragon, Marsh Flats, Rogue's Passage, Fiendslayer Paladin, and Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. Mackenzie wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays an Idyllic Beachfront. I've just got an Opal Palace, and I pass. Maximus plays a Command Tower. Mika drops a Marsh Flats, passing to Mackenzie after that. Mackenzie draws and plays a Plains, while Mika cracks his Marsh Flats and loses 1 to find a land. Mackenzie then casts a Soul Ring, and then taps the Soul Ring into a Boros Signet, passing. I draw and play a Forest, and then cast my own Soul Ring. I then pay 1 green for Hardened Scales, and pass. Maximus has an island for turn, and taps 2 for Spellskite. With nothing else, he passes. Mika draws and plays Urborg, passing to Mackenzie. Mackenzie plays a Reliquary Tower, and despite it tapping for colorless, is able to cast St. Traft and Rem Karolus before passing turn thanks to his mana rocks. I draw and play a Forest. I've got enough for Halana and Alena, filtering a mana into the Opal Palace, so they come in with a +1/+1 counter. I then pass turn. Maximus draws and plays an island. He plays out a Foundry Inspector and passes. During his end step, Mika flashes in a Blacklands Paragon. Mika draws and plays a Plains. He moves to combat, swinging the Blacklands Paragon at Maximus, and gets the Eminence trigger. This has him drawing a card and discarding a card, and Maximus blocks with a Spellskite. In Mika's second main phase, Mika casts a Fiendslayer Paladin and passes. Mackenzie draws and plays a Fury Calm Snarl, revealing a Plains from hand. He then plays out Shorakai and passes to me. I play Command Tower, and then tap 3 for Tavern Brawler, passing. Maximus draws and plays an island, but with nothing else, just passes. Mika draws and moves through his main phase, going straight to combat. He swings the Fiendslayer Paladin at Maximus again, and Mika gets the Eminence trigger, drawing a card and discarding a card, while Maximus blocks the Spellskite again. In his second main phase, Mika plays an Exotic Orchard, and then casts Sidar Jabari. After that, he passes, and during the end step, Mackenzie activates Shorakai to draw 2, discard 1, and make a pilot token. He then casts an Enlightened Tutor, going to find a Relic of Legends, and then moves to his turn. Mackenzie draws his Relic of Legends and casts it. He then plays a Plains and goes to combat. He swings St. Traft and Rem at Maximus, getting to make a 1/1 red human token because his commander becomes tapped, and Maximus continues his trend of blocking things with Spellskite. In his second main phase, Mackenzie then casts a Flockchaser Phantom, which untaps his commander, and he passes after that. I exile Kami of Whispered Hopes to the Tavern Brawler, pumping my commander by 3 power, and then draw for turn. I play a Reflecting Pool, and then cast Ozolith the Shattered Spires. I followed up by casting the Kami from Exiled, and then activate the Ozolith to put 4 +1/+1 counters onto my commander. Moving to combat, I put 10 +1/+1 counters onto the Kami thanks to all of my Hardened Scales effects and the Halana and Alena trigger, and I pass after that. During my end step, Max flashes in a Sicarian Infiltrator, paying the squad cost once, so he draws 2. Maximus draws for turn, and plays another island. He then plays Urza, Lord High Artificer, and makes a Construct token with that, and passes. Mika's got a Rogue's Passage, and then plays a Valiant Knight in his main phase before moving to combat. He swings his commander, Sidar Jabari, at Maximus, and Mika gets his Eminence trigger, drawing a card and then discarding a Sworn Defender. Mika's commander then connects for 5, and he gets to reanimate the Sworn Defender thanks to Jabari's trigger. With nothing else, Mika passes. During his end step, Mackenzie activates Shorekai to draw 2 and make a pilot token. Mackenzie draws and plays Invasion of Mercadia, with Mika defending it. He then taps his commanders to the Relic of Legends and uses the mana to activate Shorekai again, making a pilot and a token from his commander. Going to combat, Mackenzie swings the Flock Chaser Phantom at his battle, defeating it, exiling it, and then casting it. After combat, Mackenzie convokes an Invasion of Segovia, making a Spirit token from Traft and Rem, and Max responds by tapping his 5 artifacts to activate Urza. This has him shuffling and then flipping into a Shimmer Mirror, which he casts. The invasion then resolves with Mackenzie untapping his commander again, and then taps them once more to the Relic of Legends, this time making an Angel token before passing to me. I exile an Incubation to the Tavern Brawler, pumping my commander, and then draw for turn. I then cast the Incubation Druid, and tap my Kami for 10 mana. I use half of it to cast an Uncivil Unrest, and I then use some of it to activate the Ozolith to put counters onto the Incubation Druid. Once that's done, I follow up with the Red Terror, giving it haste with Riot. Going to combat, I use the Halana and Alena trigger to put 11 +1/+1 counters onto the Red Terror, and swing it at Mackenzie. He chumps with a Soldier token, which in turn lets me put 4 more counters onto the Red Terror with its ability and all of my Hardened Scales effects. I then pass turn. Maximus draws and plays an island. He casts Sivitri, and then downticks the Walker to search his library for a Shimmer Dragon, putting it to hand. He then taps some artifacts to help cast it, thanks to Urza, and passes. Mika draws and plays a Terramorphic Expanse. He then casts Lost Order of Jarlked, but with nothing else, passes to Mackenzie. Mackenzie draws and plays an island. He then taps Saint Traft and Rem for a mana to help convoke Shadow the Source and deals 6 damage to his Invasion of Segovia. It transforms, and at this point we remember he should have 2 Krakens from casting the invasion side, and he adds them to his board. He then moves through his steps, passing, and gets to untap 4 of his creatures. With the ability on the stack, Max responds by tapping his Spellkite for a blue, and activates Spellkite to redirect the untap on Saint Traft onto itself. I exile a Carplusian Forest, and then draw, and play the Carplusian Forest as my land for turn. I move to combat, and put the Halana and Alena trigger once more onto the Red Terror, this time swinging it at Maximus. Maximus chumps it with a Construct token, but taps it and the Spellkite before damage to draw a card of the Shimmer Dragon. The Red Terror then takes out the Construct and gains more +1/+1 counters. In my post-combat main phase, I then use the Ozolith to put more counters onto Halana and Alena, and just pass after that. Maximus draws and plays Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. He then upticks Sivitri and passes. Mika draws and activates Rogue's Passage on Sidar Jabari. He then swings his commander at me, and draws and discards a Knight Exemplar. I then take the hit for 5, and Sidar's trigger brings back the Herald of Hoofbeats to the battlefield. After that, Mika passes, and Mackenzie uses the end step as a chance to activate Shorekai, drawing 2, discarding 1, and making a pilot token. Mackenzie draws and taps Saint Traft and Remulus along with a bunch of creatures to help cast Wildfire Awakener, where X is 8. He makes 8 pingy elemental tokens, and then goes to combat. He swings the Flock Chaser Phantom at Mika, who takes 5. In his second main phase, Mackenzie casts Keeper of the Accord with his elementals. This gives him 4 triggers from the elementals to deal 1 damage to any target, and he picks 2 to Max and 2 to me. Max activates Spellskite twice to redirect 2 of them to it, tapping some blue mana for it, and I take 2, and Mackenzie passes. I exile a Fertilid to Tavern Brawler and draw. I then cast the Fertilid and give it haste with Riot before moving to combat. I use my Halana and Alena trigger to put 13 +1/+1 counters onto it, and then swing the Red Terror at Mackenzie, who chumps with a Spirit token, and the Red Terror grows a bit more. I then pass, and during my end step, Max flashes in a Mycosynth Wellspring, going to grab a basic. He then casts a Trading Post. He then taps both of them to draw a card with a Shimmer Dragon. Once that's done, he flashes in a Mycosynth Lattice and taps 6 more artifacts to draw 3 cards. Maximus draws for turn and upticks Sivitri. He plays a Tomb of the Spirit Dragon and casts an Aetherflux Reservoir. We then see a Cranial Plating with Maximus gaining 2, and he taps 4 artifacts to draw 2 more cards. He follows up with a Lightning Greaves, which he equips to Urza and gains 3. He then plays a Reality Chip, gaining 4, and he moves the Greaves off Urza to equip the Reality Chip to him, and then moves the Greaves back. He then casts Skull Clamp off the top, gaining 5. Max then plays a Vidalcan Aether Mage, gaining 6, and passing the critical 50 life threshold. He continues his storm by channeling Odawara and bounces his Skull Clamp back to hand, and then recasts it, drawing a card from the Vidalcan Archmage and gaining more life. Max then moves the Skull Clamp to the Shimmer Dragon and passes. Mika draws and plays True Conviction. He then moves to combat, swinging the last Order of Jarlkeet at me and Sidar at Max. Responding to Sidar Jabari's Eminence trigger, I cast a Chord of Calling, putting 4 into the X, and go to find a Voldaren Thrillseeker, which I use to back up on the Red Terror. I then fling it at Mika for 38 damage, who dies immediately. We still have to move through Mika's phases, and during the end step, Mackenzie goes to activate Shorikai and taps St. Traft and Rem, making some tokens, drawing 2 cards, and discarding 1. Mackenzie draws and activates Shorikai again. He then plays a General Ferris Rokrick, and then activates Sekiran Flameright to make 2 elementals and give his whole team +1/+0 and haste. Going to combat, Mackenzie sends his flyers at Maximus and everything else at me. With the 8 elemental tokens getting tapped, he gets 8 triggers to deal 8 damage to whatever he wants, and he puts them all into Max. Since he's going to drop below 50 anyway, Max responds by activating his Aetherflux Reservoir to blast Mackenzie for 50. With another player out, we move through the phases, and during Mackenzie's end step, I use the opportunity to remove 5 +1/+1 counters from the Fertilid and go to grab 5 basics before drawing. My turn has me exiling the Stomping Grounds to Tavern Brawler, and I draw. I then activate the Ozolith, putting more counters onto Halana and Alena, and move to combat, putting her trigger onto the Voldaren Thrillseeker. This has it getting 16 +1/+1 counters, and I don't even bother attacking and just fling it at Max's face. He responds by casting Malakir Rebirth on the Sicarian Infiltrator, and sacrifices it to the Trading Post to draw 2 cards total. He's looking for Stifle, but even with that, he's still facing a lethal board of attackers, and knows when he's beat, and scoops it up. Game review time. So in this game, Halana and Alena reminded me just how much and how important having trample is. Since I really didn't have any, and as big as my Red Terror was, it was never going to connect. People had too many blockers. That's why I'm so thankful that I decided to put in that Voldaren Thrillseeker, since having an option to fling things made it so much easier to kill opponents. Mackenzie's Saint Traft and Remulus deck was incredible, and I love the Convoke mechanic, so being able to get some kind of payoff from this is even better. It seemed to go pretty wide with his tokens, and I'm really excited to hopefully see him played again in the future. Mika's Sidar Jabari of Zalfir deck is great. I love taking precons and expanding upon them, and I think he's done a fantastic job. Mika has a soft spot for old cards, as you may have noticed with some of his older inclusions, but they're always fun and can actually be pretty surprising. Maximus's Sivitri deck is Dimir Control, but it also has like a heavy artifact sub-theme. It feels very much like Shimmer Dragon and Urza are the all-stars of the deck, with Sivitri just there to provide value and kind of a propaganda-like effect to prevent him from being attacked. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.